Hi, everybody. So here we are again with our Where We Are Now webinar. I just want to take a second to, as you know, the attendees start to join us, just to say thank you to Jim Hudak, who is behind the scenes. He's the tech director at Workbook, and he makes all of this happen every week and supports me in my craziness. So that's like a super nice thing, and I wanted to just give a shout out because he really makes this happen. I want to, of course, take a minute to thank my sort of co-host, co-creator, Heather Elder, for bringing us this idea and being part of this on a weekly basis. I think it's a labor of love for both of us. So just always want to take a minute to thank her.
Right back at you, Heidi.
Oh, absolutely. So now I'm going to just, try to stumble through everybody's names and a little bit about everyone so that we can get on to the questions. I wanted to start with Arpi Agdir. I think I did that right, Arpi, yes? Right. So Arpi produces all global shoots and campaigns for marketing, PR, social, lookbooks, and retail displays. She's the art producer at Vans, managing shoot budgets, calendars, supplies, travel arrangements, catering, vendor correspondence, collaborating with source models, photographers, location scouting, acquiring permits, and tracking. She does a lot. We want to thank Arpi for being here today. And something personal about her, which I think is the greatest things, is during quarantine, she sometimes FaceTimes her friends and brushes their teeth together. I think this is like absolutely hysterical. I want to move on to Justine. Justine is a senior art producer at RPA. She's worked on Honda, Lazy Boy, Jeep, Ray-Ban, and StubHub. Something personal about her to share is she loves true crime and she enjoys making pottery.
Ooh.
That's super cool.
Hi, everyone.
I want to see that pottery. Next, I'm going to move into Jennifer D. She's the VP Director of Integrated Creative Services at McCann Health, New Jersey. Something personal about her to share is before becoming a producer, she attended culinary school and ran 5 restaurants. Oh, I'm sorry. I read that wrong. And ran restaurants for 5 years, not 5 restaurants for 1 year, but a restaurant for 5 years. And then I wanted to move into Trish McKeon. She's the senior vice president. What is it? Senior VP. So is that senior vice president? Yep. Yes. Okay. Senior vice president, director, broadcast production. She's worked on AbbVie. I'm going to just kill all of these things. Demura, Lilly, Eli Lilly, Jen. All right, I'm just going to stop now because it's becoming embarrassing. Something personal about her to share is that she worked with Macho Man Randy Savage on Slim Jim commercials, which were mostly filmed in New Mexico, and developed a passion for the Southwest style and culture when she dropped off a case of ocean spray for Don Imus one morning. That's a totally another story, but she was dressed like a cowgirl, which I find very cool. Hannah Wolfert is a senior art producer, creative studios for Cinos Health. Her work history is that she's 25 years in the industry, and she's been the senior art producer at, am I saying Cinos correctly?
I think it's Cineos.
Cineos.
Yeah.
She's been doing that for over 10 years now. She's produced photo shoots both nationally and internationally, commissioned original art, and produced and procured images for a myriad of pharmaceutical clients. Something personal about her to share is that I have a wicked zombie fighting skills. In my spare time, I enjoy hiking, reading, photography, and making collage art. I want to see some of the wicked zombie skills. Then, last but not least, Heather Elder. Heather has been an agent for over 20 years. She hosts the Dear Art Producer podcast, writes a blog about the industry, and hosts a site for freelance art producers. Mostly, though, she's always thinking ahead, and what better time to do that than now. I'm Heidi. Heidi Governman. I've been with Workbook for 6 years now. Before that, I was with APA LA. I get to support my clients in this crazy business. I help commercial artists market themselves. So I really love to support my clients, and I'm very nurturing, so it suits my personality really well. But let's move on because that was awkward. Um, I wanted to start off with content creation. And I think I'd like to start with Arpi. Are you at a point where you're bidding, where you're bidding on any projects?
Right now, I think everything that we're doing is just going through all these approval processes. So everything's a bit on hold, and we're sort of trying to figure out creative ways to make things happen. Because a lot of the projects that I do work on involve lifestyle shoots. So because we can't do those classic lifestyle shoots anymore, we're trying to come up with other ways to do it safely. So that's kind of where I'm at.
I'd love to throw that same question over to Jennifer.
Yeah, we're interestingly enough, because I'm in the professional healthcare space and we're not broadcast or consumer, we're actually super busy. I'm actually in the midst of 3 very large campaign productions right now that were all in the preliminary phase just as COVID kind of kicked in. And we had to switch gears pretty quickly from, and all 3 of these campaigns were more of a mixed media. It was live action with some CGI work. And we transitioned all of them to CGI executions, which has been very successful and could not have worked at a better time, right? If you're not gonna be able to go anywhere, CGI is the way to go. So we are working and I am getting ready to start the bidding process for 3 other campaigns that'll be launching in Q4.
Sort of want to expand on that point. How is illustration, CGI, and animation played into everyone's problem solving right now? I'm wondering if maybe Trish, could you speak to that?
Sure. So I know we're similar to Jennifer. We're in the healthcare space, and we have not missed a beat. When we sort of bristle when we see, we're working from home and getting back to work, returning to work instead of returning to office, because our team of producers has not stopped. I mean, we've had, 50, 60-hour work weeks. We're bidding like crazy. A lot of our shoots went on hold. I will not lie, but we have a number of clients that want to start shooting again in the summer. It's still a little problematic. So I know illustration and CGI has ramped up. Our art producers are insanely busy. And I just sent around a bunch of animation links to our creative team, our entire creative team, hundreds of people, saying, think animation for now and think about shoots later. So, yes, CGI, animation, illustration, but we're hoping that, modified shoots now might be the foreseeable 6 months. And we don't want to stop shooting. Nobody does. And we want to keep going. So looking like virtual attendance is kind of the thing that's getting more easily approved. As if you say you're not going, we get a thumbs up legally to go, which again is not ideal, but for the new normal, we're bidding like crazy. It's very busy.
Trish, I have a question for you. Is it okay, Heidi, if I chime in? When you say modified shooting, what does that mean for you? How are you defining it?
Sure. Oh God, where do we begin? So not only would the agency not travel and the client not travel potentially, because that is problematic. That's considered high risk right now and for the next 30 to 60 days, gatherings in the name of FCB Health and in the name of our clients is also something that has to get evaluated and is tricky. So we're trying to do shoots, create in place is a term that I've heard a lot. We've called them no contact virtual shoots, for virtual content gathering. So basically, how much can we do with user generated content? How much can we do with a director or a photographer remotely directing the talent? And again, a photographer really can't remotely direct, quote unquote, but they can guide them a lot. And a director certainly has remotely directed 2 of our shoots already, and they've come out pretty decently. Again, if we were there and it was all together, I think it would have come out a little bit better, but it's pretty good, and our clients are ecstatic. So we're trying to produce through the current, unprecedented pandemic and looking at the next 3 to 6 months, just trying to make it work in a new normal.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
I see both Hannah and Justine sort of nodding their heads. Hannah, would you add on to that at all?
Yeah, I mean, I've had a lot of, like what I've been working on has been more illustration, CG stuff. I actually just had a call this afternoon with a team who's wanting to do a shoot in late July, early August. And so what I'm trying to work with through with them is like, okay, well, this is what it looks like. This is what I know now. What are your expectations? What are the client's expectations? And just trying to caveat it with like, okay, well, and this is what we know now, but in July or August when we want to shoot, it could be totally different. We don't know if this thing will spike again and will be shut down again, if everything will be open up and we can actually have like a more normal photo shoot. But I have mentioned like the virtual shooting, like Trish was mentioning, and I've get a little bit of pushback on it because they're like, well, we kind of want to travel, we kind of want to be, but I kind of explained to them like, well, I don't, for a myriad of reasons, I don't think that that's going to happen. And I've been talking to them about the create in place, that how photographer, we're not going to have this plethora of talent to work with, that kind of thing. It's going to be kind of limited in what we do, and it could possibly change from here to there. But we're starting to see clients, not just myself, but the other producers I work with, we're starting to see people like wanting to do shoots and wanting to get out there.
I think the create in place, or the produce in place, as the workbook calls it, dynamic is really an interesting one, because my experience with it, is that when clients are looking at that as an option, it's very talent driven. That's the first thing that they're looking for, is who the talent is. And then what does the location look like? And then obviously who is the person behind the camera? What are they going to be able to do for them? And they have so many choices. They're obviously going to find really great, capable photographers and directors to do it. But it really comes down to the talent and the roles that they're trying to fill.
I find that clients want to feel confident right now. Sorry, I think that for us, our experience is that I think they want to just be told that we're still going to be able to stay on track. We're going to get you what you need. And that we are proactively monitoring and working with all of our creative partners on a daily basis to understand what's going on. I mean, I'm constantly looking at the production service network to see what countries are up and running, and they've been great about posting samples of shoots that they've done and how they've accomplished them. And so for us at McCann Health New Jersey, is we're just kind of being brought into the process a lot earlier than normal. So I'm having conversations with teams far more in advance than normal, but also explaining to clients that we're actively working, and we're finding workarounds. And I just feel that instilling that level of confidence kind of gets everybody a little bit more comfortable with kind of what we may be throwing at them that may be different.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're saying something really important there about having those conversations earlier. I presented to a brand yesterday on a webinar and was explaining to them that one of the most important things that they can do as creatives and producers right now is to get to know the vendors that they're going to be using, the talent, the photographers, the directors, get to know them and have those conversations now, because they need to start having these feasibility conversations that they never had before. Like, here's my idea, is this feasible? As opposed to where we as reps or photographers and directors just get the layouts or get the spec sheet and say, here, go do it. That conversation has to happen long before we get that, because we need to make sure that it's even possible to do.
Yeah. And that's kind of what I've been experiencing, is I'm not just given one concept and set and like told, okay, this is what we want to shoot. It's like, these are the 3 ideas we're pitching now. What's feasible? What do you think? What's your ballpark of what you think these will cost?
Yeah.
Which is a little hard to determine right now too, based on everything. I think that's it. It's like, what's feasible?
Justine, can you weigh in on that for us?
Yeah, definitely. So in terms of some of the projects I've been working on, we're in super early concepting phases. So, a lot of the discussions are we're going to be in production in the fall, and it's like, well, nobody knows where we're going to be at, if things will be kind of as they are now, if they're going to be more open, or potentially even kind of locked down again. So creative teams are really having to approach projects and kind of, maybe even like think about like different ways to execute a similar idea, or even like they're concepting differently. So it's definitely been, at least kind of from what we've seen, like a lot more work on the upfront, because obviously there's, all those additional considerations, and, the teams are all having discussions internally about, safety, and, kind of using information that we get from vendors in terms of what they've been able to accomplish, and kind of using those as like potential avenues for execution. And kind of going back to what Hannah was talking about a little earlier, some of our projects we've been doing when everything first happened, we had to kind of like switch gears very quickly. And instead of it just being, a new photo shoot, it was like, okay, well, now we have to pick up existing assets, say for Honda. And thankfully they're already in a CGI workflow. So, that kind of made that seamless. And, having to pivot and look at like illustration or, other ways to like help bring an idea to life. So that's definitely been really crucial. But one thing has really impacted kind of our project timelines continuing to like move forward is, obviously like vehicle production, lines are shut down. There aren't teams in the studio working on building the CG data. So, we definitely saw kind of a lag time with that and had to push everything out.
Yeah.
It sort of dovetails into the next section we wanted to talk about, which is the new normal. There's a lot of new guidelines being talked about, and, and you need to be talking. The question is, are you talking to your clients about that? I'm going to go ahead, Justine. I actually would love for you to continue.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think it's really just an ongoing conversation with clients. There's information is coming out every day, and kind of that, I guess, like needle or pinpoint that we're trying to like hit, it kind of just keeps moving. So we all are, having to kind of be fluid and sort of move with it and adapt, and, obviously like learn as we go, and, making sure that we're making the best decisions for the client and keeping them informed, and, bringing solutions for like how we can execute things. And speaking to kind of, Trish and Jennifer, what they were saying in terms of like, really bringing confidence to the client, making sure that they know, like, we've got this, we're figuring it out, we're working together.
I wanted to go to ARPI again, because, are they, as you look into the future and the new normal, is there an understanding that, of the new guidelines and the time additions and the restrictions and the new line items and things like that?
Yeah, I think, well, because I do work in-house, we're working really closely with our legal department, and I think it's fair to say no one really knows, or it's clear that what we're doing or what's going to happen in the future. But I think we are coming up with creative ways to sort of I think we're just sort of looking at different ways of how we handle production in general, and just maybe looking to work with people we haven't really considered working with before. So I think some of the stuff we are working on is going to come out even better. I'm actually really excited, because this just forces us to be more creative than just being safe. Okay, like let's just do another shoot and, do the same thing we did before. So I think it's going to be really exciting to see what's going to happen. I think the digital space is just going to go crazy. So I've been just sort of trying to collect artists and people that would be inspiring for everybody to sort of put on their radar, since we can't like go out into the world. But yeah, I think it's just, we're all trying to figure it out. But on my end, everything just has to get approved from legal. And sometimes they don't have certain answers for us. So
That's
just taking it day by day.
I mean, that's a good point to make about getting it approved for, by legal, because that's the one thing that's always seems to be a big challenge, at least from where I work, is just, they don't understand that the the short amount of time we have to do things, they want to take weeks to decide if, you know, and so I think that'll be a big challenge, at least for myself, and maybe in the pharma space for Jennifer or Trish. But something definitely, that's a good point that to take back to the folks that I work with, because you know, I can talk about hypothetically about this all day with my creative teams, like this is what we can do, but the bottom line is if the legal department doesn't approve it, or, you know, nixes something, it would be back to the drawing board. And does it fall on the client's legal team, or my agency's legal team, or is it kind of both, you know?
Jennifer, I see you really nodding. I was hoping maybe you'd jump in there.
Yeah, I think, you know, for me, it's, you know, because we do professional, I have a lot of moving pieces with kind of the content we're producing. So I'm putting out full campaigns. We've successfully right now been able to move them to a CGI space. So we kind of band-aided that. Where it's interesting, one client the other day said, I don't want to ever do a shoot again. Who wants to hear that? But, you know, when you're with a busy brand manager, you get why that's coming out. I think for me, it's more about, you know, where are we going around, you know, we do a lot of physician and patient documentary style work. That's a very significant part of our work. So while things like the things we do for conventions, which are now going to become virtual, our digital space is going to blow up. My work in that space will continue to get bigger. We'll produce more content. But it's that kind of area about the shooting. How are we going to move forward with shooting? And I think it's, for me, I'm going to be relying a lot on my creative partners on the production side of things with the guidelines for what's going to happen on set. I'll handle the conversations with the client and the legal side of things to ensure that we have the go-ahead. But I think for the foreseeable future, we're not going to see a lot of clients and agency people on sets.
No.
I just don't think that's going to happen for quite a while. And this is probably a little off topic, but going back to what I'm looking for in my creative partners in the form of production companies when we do start shooting is I really want to understand what that plan looks like for that remote connection so that my clients and my creative directors and my account leads all feel like they are having that same similar experience with being live on set to the best of our ability. Because I do think it'll be like this for a while. But I'm not limiting us at all creatively. I've had, like I said, 3 kickoff meetings for brands that are going to be in production in Q4. And they were like, is there anything we're not allowed to do? And I was like, concept the way you would, you know, the story that we set out to tell is still paramount. That's the most important thing. Let's not limit ourselves by the storytelling tools. We'll deal with that as it comes because things are changing every day. So it's just that whole moving parts thing. It's very hard to have a different, you know, every day it's different, right?
Yeah.
I want to go to Trish because you were really talking about some of this yesterday when in our pre-show conversation. So I wanted you to expand on some of that.
What to do with shoots and attending them?
Yeah, you were talking about your planning and how you're, you know, I've never COVIDed before. I've never had a pandemic, right?
So, you know, one of the things when the pandemic first hit in early to mid-March, depending on what agency you're at, we were all talking about, okay, in a couple of weeks, we'll come back and get back to normal. Obviously, that didn't happen. So I started to distribute producer guidance. And in that producer guidance, it was everything's taking longer. So we had a shoot that was at the end of March that our client said, we are absolutely not postponing it. So figure it out. And we changed the whole thing to virtual everything. And luckily for us, it was patient testimonials, video. And we got it done, but it was, you know, it was extraordinarily stressful. I myself didn't produce it. But my 2 producers that were working on it, it required 2, had a document of learnings. And so we distributed that document. And one of the biggest call outs was prep time. So I thought I saw in one of the questions that, you know, we do need a lot of prep time now, and we need to allow for the unpredictability of the pandemic and all the handicaps that brings. And that's shipping equipment, that is bad technology. If you're shooting real people, patients, or people in their homes being an actor or a model, you have to allow for handicaps. You have to allow for learning. A pre-light day now turns into a training day. You have to train people how to use the equipment. We've had 2 directors did live YouTube videos, how to set up your camera. One guy put music to it. It was so good. I couldn't believe it. I was like, he really put a lot of time and effort into the how-to video and made it seem very easy. So the new normal is there's a way to do it, and it's about the extra prep time, and it's about patience and tolerance. And us producers, along with our account team, have to talk to clients about managing their expectation. Yes, we can try to move fast. We can't guarantee anything.
I'd like to raise my hand and reiterate about the prep time and the pre-production and how important it is going to be to put that time in and be available to put that time in. I say this a lot, but we were a well-oiled machine before, and everyone had a way of doing it, and we were so efficient. And a lot of that obviously happened on set, and it required strong pre-production for sure. But this kind of pre-production is very different. It's like pre-production. We recorded a podcast yesterday between one of our photographers and a client who had done a remote shoot, and they both kind of post-mortemed what that shoot was like. And the biggest thing that went to the top was both parties said they thought they had added enough pre-production time, but they wished they had had even more, because there was so much that needed to be scripted and figured out: angles, lighting, the dance on set, like all of it. It really, really can't be, that part cannot be dismissed. And you schedule more, but then know that you're going to probably even need more, and make sure your teams are available for it, and paying attention to how important it is. They can't be kind of multitasking on something else. It's just as important to have their input ahead of time as it is going to be to have it on set.
Absolutely. And all of you are sort of thinking of that in as you're starting to look towards this in the future. I want to go back to Justine.
Yeah. I think couldn't agree more with what Heather and Trish said. And I think also just knowing that even though you allocate a certain amount of time that you think is going to be appropriate, things always come up and things always change. And so you have to be ready for that. You could be partway through planning a project, and who knows, maybe a new limitation or something could come down, and then you have to kind of like switch gears. So I think, definitely in terms of planning time, you really have to make sure that you have plenty of time allocated, and that everybody is like engaged and actively involved in everything that is being, discussed and considered. So we're all aligned before we get there.
I just wanted to, and thank you so much, Justine. I wanted to reiterate it again, because it is the most asked question that we've had in anticipation of this webinar, but also it's currently happening on our Q&A right now. The same question about your side of the table, understanding that pre-planning and allowing for those additional days and things like that. So thank you. I want to move on to, the productions themselves, and as you guys are moving towards them, what is the most important thing to your clients or your company in that process? What is priority wise? I'm going to throw this one to Jennifer.
So we've had, I have clients who are concerned from a legal perspective, are they responsible if there's a shoot? Are they responsible for what goes on set, or if somebody gets ill and things like that? And so I think that's where the constant communication with our legal teams is going to be crucial to when we get back to shooting. I think that's going to be number one. And like I said before, for me, I want to understand what the plan is on set, and I'm relying upon the production companies to come with those plans. I don't want to have to ask for that. I'm dealing enough with trying to manage the client side of things. So when I'm seeing a bid and a treatment, I'm expecting to see some type of a plan in there. Is there going to be a hygiene coordinator on set? Are we going to have sanitation breaks that will enable things to get cleaned down? And obviously this is going to add to shoot time and all of that. And that's the stuff we have to manage with our clients, the same as wanting more pre-production lead time and prep time. So in order to have those conversations, I feel like just having that help from that side of the process, and not just getting a bid and a treatment, but getting what the plan is going to be like, and the communication plan with what's the best way that we can funnel back what's going on set, back to our clients, back to our team, especially if we can't even get a creative on set. It may be that type of a situation. We're also looking at now for, we have documentary type work that's going to be starting up again. So I'm working with companies like Hayden 5, who have these great drop kits that are, you know, you get somebody to go set it up, sanitize it, get it ready to go, either bring it to the home or to a location where nobody else is, where they can interact and you can have a live feed and watch the recording happening. So we're going to have to start getting back to that work. It's a matter of what does it look like, right? And so I think it's a coordinated effort on all sides of the production on how to make that work effectively.
I want to go to Arpi and ask the same question.
I think the biggest thing is timeline and budget. We're definitely not going to meet some of these deadlines, but yeah, I mean, we're working through it, and I think we're doing a great job.
So
Hannah, please.
Yeah, I have a quick question because Jennifer mentioned treatments. And so it makes me wonder, are treatments going to start getting much more granular and not just including like, this is how we're going to light it, this is how we're going to do, but much more like almost like little blueprint, like much more detailed, like blueprints of how things will be set up to kind of orchestrate how it's going to happen and everybody's going to stay safe and sanitized and that kind of thing. It's not going to be just about the creative, but is it going to be also about the health?
I can answer that because we've already created a couple of treatments and we've had to include that in there. Now, you know, I want to be protective of the photographers because those treatments take a really long time and there's so much effort and obviously they don't get paid for it and it is for a good reason. So we have to be careful that we're not blowing up these treatments at a point where it's just taking even longer. But those, though, you know, maybe it's at the expense of a different part of the treatment has to come out or that it has to become smaller somehow. But that is an incredibly big part. I'm bidding a job right now and the art producer told me they've got 3 photographers and they're each approaching the COVID part of it very differently. And I thought that was so interesting because in my mind, you know, what could be the different ways? Like you wear everybody knows what the guidelines and protocols are. Yeah. So I think it's going to be really important, not only just to show what your approach will be, but also to have some sort of proof of concept. You know, everybody in our group has something that shows what they've been working on and how they did it, and what they were able to create with the limitations that are a part of who they are. So I think that part of the treatment is going to be really important.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I just want to jump in real quick. I almost kind of see it as like potentially sort of 2 separate, almost like treatments, you know, one being kind of the traditional, you know, creative photographer treatment and how he or she is going to approach everything. But then also like almost you know, production treatment of sorts, or kind of like a safety or execution plan. You know, I know on the broadcast side, you know, when you guys are shooting at the very beginning, it's like, all right, safety meeting, here are all the protocols. And, you know, so it's almost kind of like that, the more, you know, details and kind of like tactical, here's how we're going to do this. I mean, it's going to be crucial.
So would you want those at the same time? I mean, how would you, understanding that one informs the other and vice versa, but do those happen at the same time, or can those not even happen until a space is secured? And so, you know what I mean?
I mean, I would probably want to see that at time of award. I wouldn't want to have everybody spin their wheels putting that together. I would want to understand that they have some thought into it. But I would say once the job awards, I think that plan is an absolute necessity at kickoff. For me, at least, that's how I would see it. I wouldn't want to waste, like I said, you know, triple bidding and everybody having to spend hours and hours on this massive document. But I think everybody should have some type of a template in place already. So for me personally, I'd love to see it at award, what the plan is when it comes with the schedule.
Would the rest of you agree with that?
I personally would probably prefer to see it a smidge sooner, just because, you know, that plan is probably also impacting timing and budget. So I think just having all of those tools and how they all work together is really important. But I do agree with Jennifer, you know, I mean, having something that's super blown out and like really detailed, and, you know, that's not realistic. So, you know, yeah, you've got to have a template in place and being able to, like, you know, at least speak to all the big stuff and how you're going to handle those.
Hannah, you would agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, as Justine was saying, I think that, yeah, it's gonna, you're gonna wanna see something from all three people that you're bidding with, because it will affect, like, you know, maybe what the client, you know, how the client feels about the protection, you know, the plan, the safety plan. And I would rather see it sooner rather than later, and know that whoever we're going to shoot with is, you know, have the confidence that they're going to provide a safe shoot. And yeah.
Totally. I just want to jump in because I know Jennifer spoke to this earlier in terms of, you know, the confidence and relaying that to clients. And it's literally like a chain, you know, we look to, you know, our production partners and, you know, for them to kind of like give us the confidence of everything that's happening and what's being considered and how you're arriving at those decisions. And then we can then relay that to our clients and, you know, so on and so forth.
Right. And it's, I'm sorry, Jennifer. Go ahead.
Just say, we all know as producers, right? Our job is to nod when they tell us the most insane thing and go, yeah, sure, no problem. We'll take care of it. It'll be handled. It's just that to the next level at this point.
Yeah. And it's a confidence level. It's like, you know, you already want to have confidence that the person you're bidding with, the people you're bidding with can handle your project and do what you need them to do. So it's just another level of confidence, like the producers, the production teams, the photographers, everybody's going to be able to keep everybody safe as well.
I think that's I mean, these are all amazing points, and it kind of pushes me to the next, like, who is that person, which is, you know, I want to sort of talk a little bit about how people are marketing towards you right now. You know, what do you know, for the person who wants to market to you, the photographer, the director who wants to get in front of you and be considered by you, you know, what do you need right now? What are you looking for? I think I'd love to start with Jennifer. That's where you are on my screen. That's why I keep.
That's where you are on my screen.
Okay, well, there we go. Perfect.
You know, I think, and I don't know how everybody else feels, I'm sure everybody has a different approach, is I feel like in this time with everything going on, the creative producers that I have very strong relationships with are the people who I'm keeping really close, because it's an easier way to kind of figure out, especially for the productions that had to switch gear and I had to make a phone call and say, hey, an in-camera project is now CGI and I need a treatment in 2 days and a bid in 1. So, you know, I think as things start to loosen up, right, we can start to hear and entertain kind of how we normally want to go after people from a creative perspective. So for me, and I think, and Heather and I have talked about this too in the podcast I do with Heather, is, you know, I want to be communicated to about kind of what's going on and how it relates to your business and my business. I think that's the way to get my attention, is kind of lead in with, hey, look, we know this is happening and it's changing every day. Here's what we're doing to stay ahead of that. That's the stuff that's catching my eye, and those are the people that I'm reaching out to a little bit more frequently than maybe I wouldn't have in the past.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to go to Arpi on this, because you really kind of said earlier, you're looking at new and different things, right? It's an exciting time for you to think of new things. So what are the marketing messages that are resonating with you right now?
I think what we're trying to achieve right now is just sort of trying to connect with people during this time and how we can create content that relates to that. So a lot of the talent that we are looking at are people that are relatable. But then also, I mean, it goes back to, I keep going back to the legal thing. It's like, if whatever's easier to get approved and whatever makes more sense, that person is going to be, you know, working on the project. So I don't know. And I also personally had like a little scare right before the quarantine happened. So I personally feel like more cautious about everything. We had someone who was on set who was, you know, who had to go through the treatment process, and, you know, I had to check the dates and make sure like everyone else was safe. And that feeling was horrible. And I don't ever want anyone to feel that way. So I'm trying to just think of other ways to, you know, do this. And I'm like, well, if it's going to take longer to figure out, that's fine. But I don't want to be responsible for someone, you know, being at risk. So, yeah.
I would like to add too, you know, there is no insurance right
Yeah.
now, right? You guys used to have weather delay insurance or wrap insurance. If something happened, we were covered. If we needed to add an extra day for something, like there was coverage there. That doesn't exist anymore. So everybody, the agency, the brand, the photographer or director, whoever's being hired, really needs to assess their own risk level of each individual situation and what they feel comfortable doing, because nobody's going to want to be left holding all the risk, financial, liability, PR, personal, so there really is nothing to protect ourselves. So we have to surround ourselves by people we trust, by the processes that we trust, make sure that we're following guidelines and protocols that we feel good about, because there are no official guidelines or protocols for the film and production industry. I mean, I know there are some. It was brought to my attention in Georgia and Florida yesterday, but there's no national one. We're following what the CDC says, and we're kind of making it up as we go along, but it doesn't ensure that the person on your set, RP, isn't going to get sick or bring something to get somebody else sick. So without any protections, we really are all taking chances to produce. So we then have to go back to the concepting phase, where we have to make sure the concepts that we're being asked to produce are conducive in an environment that we all feel safe enough to take a risk and go and produce.
This is an interesting question that's sort of happening on the Q&A right now, which is, would a specific brand or a specific client would they want to come up with their own COVID guidelines? This is a specific question for Justine. Is the legal at RPA or her client Honda coming up with specific COVID rules for all productions on locations? I would think that they would want a certain consistency when shooting starts again, instead of each production company coming up with their own COVID guidelines. I'd like to remove the client from that question, and I think it's a good question for everyone, right? And so, Justine, if you're comfortable answering that, that'd be awesome. But I think that I'd love to hear everyone's thoughts.
Yeah, totally. I mean, as everybody has said, this is new for everybody. So, it's almost kind of like who's out there sort of leading the charge, and how are they doing it? And okay, that makes sense. And then, maybe somebody else has some other ideas or additional considerations that they're doing. So I don't know, that's kind of like a good starting point. But I mean, at the same time, every production kind of has slightly different needs, and so I guess depending on, what you're creating, could kind of have a different plan, so to speak.
Well, each state is different, right?
Yeah.
So depending on where you're shooting or creating something, you have to take into account your own state. And Los Angeles and the film commissions or the film industry hasn't even come out with their guidelines yet. So we really don't have anyone yet to follow. Like Justine said, who's out there having the loudest voice is someone that was great. Let's go see what they say and let's figure out what makes us feel comfortable. But until there's something official that, it just doesn't exist. So we all kind of have to pull from what makes us feel comfortable and then assess our own level of risk, which is terrifying, I think.
Totally. And I mean, there's kind of not noise per se, but there's a lot of discussion happening everywhere and with all different kinds of partners. And, so it's kind of it's a little bit of almost like a bombardment of just information. And it's kind of okay, how do I piece through and figure out what's most applicable, for the productions that we're doing?
Well, and I think how Trish said, when you had some producers that had done a job and they put together all their learnings and you distributed that, I think we need a few more, I keep saying we're trailblazers. We're doing this for the first time. So the first estimate that we get approved, what did that look like? Okay, the first shoot that we did, what did that look like? And what did we learn? What can we make better about it? The first person who gets sued for something, that's going to be, huge. So I think we are figuring it out right now because we don't have the leadership or the guidance or something official that we can all fall back on right now.
I think that's why the production community it feels so much like it's come together. There are like Facebook pages. And like I said, Production Service Network has been such a great resource by posting actual overviews of successful shoots. And so I think it continues to be on us, right? Just like how the states are almost responsible versus federal. I feel like it's our responsibilities as the producers, the one who kind of guide this process from pre to post mortem in a regular day. It's kind of us to, our responsibility to stay connected with one another, learn from what we've already done and how to change it moving forward. And I think also it's a little bit more about how to better educate clients so that they understand that when things impact, like Arpi said, on budget and things like that, if I'm going to feel more comfortable running a set, knowing that I've spent some extra money bringing in a hygiene coordinator, I'm going to fight for that. And that's how I'm going to be confident enough to have a set. I always look at the set as my responsibility as the producer. It's my set. I'm kind of responsible for what's going on there. And so I have to be able to create a situation that feels right for me, that I feel comfortable with, whoever I have to answer to. And it's why I think as a production community, it's important for us to stay connected in that way, to keep talking to one another about it. And just something like this. And this is a huge help.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Really good points. I'm going to shift back to that marketing element here, because I know a lot of our audience wants to know how to market to you guys. And so, I asked the question of what you need and also what marketing messages are resonating. But can you give any examples of something that's standing out to you right now? I want to go to Hannah.
I don't have any specific examples. I think what's helpful to me now is when I get emails from reps or producers that are saying, these are the people that we have that can do X, Y, and Z, whether it's a PDF or a link to the website. I find that really helpful. I started a folder on my desktop, just pulling these PDFs in. So when the time comes, I'm like, okay, I need this kind of photographer and I need them in LA or I need them in Chicago. So I can kind of call through those PDFs and kind of find what I need. I find that just in the create in place and stuff like that, like knowing who's out there and what they have to work with is really helpful. So when I start bidding and when I start thinking about who I need, I have those resources at my fingertips.
It's funny, for years we didn't want to say where the photographers or directors lived, right? Everyone, we just kind of left it like general. Now it's very important to make sure people know where you live, or at least where you can get access to easily.
Right.
Well, a previous guest, Michael Kaminsky, talked about how important it is to provide examples of how shoots are being produced. Or how they will be produced. Has anyone provided you with case studies or proof of concept sharing their approaches? Hannah, I feel like you just said you are getting that, but I wanted to move to Trish.
Sorry, I lost your question.
That's okay. Has anybody provided you with a case study or proof of concept in sharing their approach to is that how someone is marketing to you right now?
Yes. So, on the both photo and video side, I have seen 2 to 3 page kind of PDF outlines of how they would create in place, remotely direct. We've used Hayden 5 also quite a bit. We've bid them a lot. We've even had one of our directors actually create his own kit, and that was actually less expensive than Hayden 5, which is odd, because they're not that expensive. But we have gotten personalized presentations, like not presentations, but almost like a treatment. Hypothetically, if you were to do this, here's how we would approach it. And that's been enormously helpful as we're all learning how to create in place and how to do video shoots without a gathering and without people in place. And I think, Heather, just a quick note, we do get wrap insurance. It's for everything that's virtual. So we've had, and that's pretty much our lowest to no risk shoot scenario. Aon will give us wrap insurance for a completely virtual, no gathering shoot. Now those are tricky because that means no models, no hair and makeup, no stylist. Yeah. And I have seen the footage result of that.
Yeah.
So we're adding extra color correcting, retouching. We're learning how to still try to figure out how to shoot with create in place and, you know, no gatherings and no contact, and then fix it later.
And then fix
Not
it
the
later.
best and easiest approach, but it works, and we have gotten insurance for those. But those personalized, how we would approach your shoot, how we would approach getting this content, that's been helpful, like particular ones, specific.
I wanted to actually ask, you know, sort of an additional question on sort of piggybacking on that. I know that Jennifer really did answer this question already about leaning into her current relationships, but are you leaning into past relationships in your artist selection and assignment right now? Or are you looking to new people showing that they have the solutions? And I'm going to throw that to Justine.
Sorry, I wanted to kind of piggyback off of what Trish was saying, and kind of what we talked about a little bit before the webinar started. You know, like this webinar is obviously kind of like pulling the curtain back so everybody can kind of see and hear like what's happening on our end. But in terms of those decks that are coming through that Hannah and Trish spoke about, like that's almost kind of our way of like you guys pulling the curtain back and us getting to see like, okay, how is it working? Like what's happening? You know, what are you learning? How are you refining as you go? So, you know, it's kind of that like cycle that, you know, just kind of keeps going. Anyways, if you don't mind repeating the question.
No, I just want to thank you for making that point, because I think that, you know, we're all in our own perspective, and I really like that perspective that you want to see how the curtain gets pulled back on this side. I think that's I like that you took the minute to make that point. So let me find the question and then I'll get back to your question, which is, are you leaning into past relationships in your artist selection and assignment right now? Or are you looking to new people that are showing that they have solutions?
I mean, I'm not currently looking for artists just because all our projects are not really like at a place where I have concepts and I can actually really start looking for somebody. But with that said, I mean, you know, as everybody's kind of echoed here, like, you know, definitely past relationships and people that you have like really strong relationships with, and you know how they assess you know, risk and how they're tackling their productions, and you have that confidence in them. But at the same time, you know, there's new people out there, and you know, everybody's got something to add. So, you know, I think it's kind of like a wide pool right now.
Hannah, I was going to throw it right to you.
No, I totally agree. I think that for me personally, when going into next week, when I'm going to have to be looking for photographers to recommend, just starting to think about it, it is going to be kind of a combination of like, okay, who have I worked with? Who have I haven't proven results with? And then who's new out there, or who haven't I used that is kind of showing me what they can do. I think it really will be a mix of both. You know, a lot of it'll come down to budget and who can, you know, who can do what I need done for the budget I have, and that might be somebody new, and it might be somebody that I have had a previous relationship with. So
and I would think that the rep relationship would be important in this case, because not everyone, you know, isn't going to have gotten your attention, right? You might have been worked with a photographer before, but not know really what they're up to, or a director before, right? And not really know what they're up to or what they've been doing to learn, or, you know, so, you know, reaching out to your rep network would probably be a positive as well, because that person can say, oh my gosh, well, in our group, here are the people that are doing what you're looking for, because it may not be obvious or up on their website yet even.
Right. And you don't know, like, you know, of the people that I know, it's like, well, I if I haven't heard from them, I don't know if are they still shooting? Are they feeling comfortable to do that? Do they have the equipment and the resources to do it? You know, and so, yeah, it'll just really.
And it is changing day by day and state by state, and yeah, interesting.
So marketing is important right now. I mean, letting you guys know what they can do and their solutions. I think that's an important takeaway, which is why I'm taking the second to say that. It's important. So I've been saying that for a minute, but I just wanted to emphasize that point. I wanted to move into some of the registration questions that we had when we open up registration. Some of you guys get to, some people put in some questions. And the first one is, are clients warming up to moving forward with advertising their products, or are they more concerned about appearing politically correct? I think I would add to that, not just appearing to be politically correct, but concerned about safety issues. And so I feel like we've kind of addressed this a bit, but was wondering if maybe Trish could jump in on that.
I'd be happy to. Yes. So we, again, have not stopped producing. It has gotten much more complicated and everything's taking longer. And I do mean everything. Prep, selling to clients, every step is taking so much longer. We even have presentations before we even talk about a shoot regarding what's feasible. What I mean is we don't have content, but we have a meeting with a client and we say, this is more feasible, this is less. I wouldn't say politically correct is the term. It's all about risk. Everything that we talk about lately is about risk assessment and definitely safety. So on the video TV side, the AICP has really lengthy guidelines about safety on set. We've gotten lots of marketing emails about shoots on the video side that have gone on with all those safety protocols in place, and seems like they've been okay so far. Time will tell, but our clients are definitely warming up and moving forward. They want to move forward. They're like anxious. So they're looking to us to guide it safely and mitigate risk.
Thank you. My next question is, are there any particular certifications that producers require before returning to work, specifically for hair and makeup artists? Like that OSHA certification that's people are doing and things like that. I want to go back to you, Trish, because you're nodding like, I feel like you, no, not
yeah,
really.
So we did that OSHA training and I have a few certified producers and the certificate's very nice. I just want to say it's nice looking. I would frame it. So is it a requirement specifically for hair and makeup? I don't think so. I think we would look to our leaders of the production. That's, whether that's a photographer, director, DP, assistant director, and really have to execute every single safety guideline that's available. And that's what our lawyers have been advising. Every single risk, every single safety measure that's out there will mitigate the risk. So whether that's 12 bottles of antibacterial wipes, plastic shields for hair and makeup is in a different place. One person's in there at a time, on and on. PPE for hair and makeup people. So no, I don't know that we would ever require a certification. So
I want to throw the same question to Jennifer, because I see you really nodding.
Yeah, I mean, I think it goes back to what I was saying earlier is that, I'm looking towards my partners, on the production side to bring that information to the table. I want to understand from you how you're going to run your side of the set. I want to understand how hair and makeup is going to work, where I'm going to put my clients if they are on set. Will they be far enough away? If they're not on set, how are they going to communicate? I feel like, on the agency side, as I said earlier, we have so much to juggle. Trish gets that, everybody understands that. There's so much going on that it really feels to me as that's the responsibility who you're partnering with to come with what's actually going to transpire on set and how it will happen effectively and safely.
Well, I feel like that's a good place to sort of wind us a little bit down. We're almost at the witching hour. So I always like to end our webinars with our silver linings, right? So the silver linings, either personal or professionally, or, what is the good stuff? And Hannah, I'd love to start with you if you don't mind.
I guess right now, it's just that clients and my creative teams are not letting this limit them. They're still creating. They're still like the brief that I got this week for the photo shoot that they want to do in July, August, it wasn't much different than what I had received pre-COVID. So now it's just a little harder for me to or maybe not harder. It'll be a little trickier to figure out how are we going to do this and make it work with the limitations that we have now. but as Jennifer had said, that's kind of what we always do. They give you something, you smile and you nod and you're like, yep, that we'll make it work. That's what we'll do. And so I'm just glad to see that people are wanting to create still and create good stuff, not watered down stuff.
Jennifer, I think it's a good time for me to turn to you and ask you that question.
Yeah, I mean, a silver lining for me is necessity is the mother of invention. And I'm just super excited to see where production goes. I'm excited to see how our craft shifts and the way we execute things. I think when we can come out the other end and have a little bit more stability with regard to safety, I'm excited to see where we're going to go and how things are going to change and new ways of executing. And I just think the bar is going to get lifted. And that's the silver lining for me.
That's a good one. I'm going to turn to Arpi. Here's where you are on my screen.
I would have to say I've definitely noticed a shift in how everyone is coming together and everyone is being more flexible than they ever were. And everyone is happy to sort of like pitch in and help out, and it doesn't matter what it is. It makes me so happy to see that. And I think everyone is, from my perspective, I think everyone is more productive. I think everyone is just more on top of everything and more present. So I think we're all just really thankful for what we have. And I agree with everyone. Like, I'm excited to see what's going to come out of this because it's going to be very different.
Yeah.
Really good point. Trish?
Oh boy. Okay. So I'm not sure I can say I'm excited. I don't know. I'm cautiously optimistic that the silver lining is we'll learn a lot. And it's certainly stretching my producers to be so much more flexible, nimble, innovative. I love that. That's awesome. To be potentially setting a precedent that we don't need to attend shoots to make them successful, to me, I don't know what that is. That's scary. So we want to do great work while we're in this pandemic and lockdown and cities opening and closing, and say, yeah, look at the work. We can still get her done. Does that set a precedent for the future that we don't really need to go to shoots, and shoots can be 10 people or less? I hope it doesn't change the trajectory of how we used to work. I hope this is a placeholder while it's unsafe to gather, more or less, and that we can ping right back to the other way. But my fear is, much like YouTube watered down the way videos look, why does it need to look better than a YouTube video? I hope that for photography, for everything we do on shoots, I just hope it doesn't become the permanent new normal. I hope it's the for now normal.
Yeah.
Not a silver lining, is it?
No.
Oops. Get somebody else to talk.
No, it's okay though, because I think, that's the real silver lining, is that we're all being really honest and being optimistic and being concerned. They're going, they're together. So, you get a full pass on that. I want to go to Justine, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, I completely agree with what everybody has said so far. It's really definitely bringing our community and our industry together. Obviously a lot more kindness and empathy. And I think collaboration, it's really, people are partnering in new ways, to really help figure out, how do we move forward? And, I really hope that this is, like Trish said, kind of the normal for right now, and we can get back to shooting. But it's just been really nice to see how everybody comes together and, being more honest and really just kind to each other. It's a really rough time, and obviously kind of working from home and not having human interaction, has really impacted just everybody's daily lives. So it's nice to see everybody come together.
So last but not least, Heather Elder.
I've had this answer. I've answered this question many times, and every week it changes based on, what we're talking about. But I think I'm going to come full circle and just talk about the idea of community, and not just the rep community or the art producer community, or the producer community, but our industry community. I rely so much on my relationships in my job, and I'm learning from these people every day. and and being reminded that not only are they work relationships, but they're friendships. And the face-to-face that I'm getting with people every day that I wouldn't have gotten unless I got on an airplane to get there, I'm really appreciating. And I know all the conversations that everyone's willing to have and time that they're putting in is going to push our industry forward in a really positive way. And I'm really happy to just be a part of it.
Well, I have to echo that as my silver lining too. I mean, every week I talk about being grateful and wanting to personally lean into kindnesses, and how wonderful it is when those around me do the same and show me kindness, including my husband and my kids and so on. So I just want to say that I appreciate all of you guys leaning into your kindnesses this week and being part of this. This is my silver lining. There's no doubt that this webinar is the silver lining of the of this entire mishegas that we're all going through, is that I get to meet all of you guys, or I get to see people I've known and haven't gotten to see their face in a while. Like seeing Arpi today just made me smile so much. And so that's my silver lining. But I do want to take a minute to just say, you guys are the level best. Like to give us this time and to be generous with your opinions and give us this sense of what's happening with all of you. I mean, that's a real gift that we all desperately need. So I cannot thank you enough. I'm going to send you an email that's going to say the same thing, but I just cannot thank you all enough, honestly. And I think I remembered Jim this week. So again, another thank you to Jim Hudak and you know, those who support me, so on. So thank you, everybody. And now it's the wave part. And
See you later, everyone. Happy weekend.
Yes.
Bye. Have a great weekend.
Wash your hands.
So much.
Wash